Welcome to Call Before Showing, a podcast where we help real estate pros navigate the emotional ups and downs of the real estate business
and hear the stories of real people who buckle in and ride the roller coaster with us.
Are you ready? Let's go.
Hello and welcome to Call Before Showing. This is Alex Eldridge and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Allison McPherson.
Hello.
Hey Allison, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
I'm having a great day.
That's good.
I know you've had an interesting week.
Yes, I have had an interesting week. I'm having a little bit of real estate anxiety.
I actually feel very fortunate to not be having any real estate anxiety at the moment, but I have been there.
Ugh.
It's really hard because it feels like when it rains, it pours, right?
It's like every time I open my email, it's another thing to work through. I'm glad that I'm busy and I'm glad I have clients to work with and all of that, but I kind of want to take a nap.
We were talking about this the other day about how it's really important to give yourself a break when you need it. And I think that doesn't only need to apply to when you're going through something really traumatic. I think that sometimes you just need to take a mental health day.
Yeah, it was funny because my husband finally started listening to the podcast and then he turned my words around on me and said, do you remember on episode whatever, whichever one it was, I think it was episode 2, when you were talking about how you need to give yourself a day off and give yourself some grace and all of that? He was like, you need to do that because you're losing it. So
that is husband goals. That's really, really sweet that 1, he listened to the episode, and 2, he was like, listen, you need to take some time. That is what your partner should be doing.
But I also don't want him to turn my words around on me when I feel like I'm right and I don't want to take a break and I can't take a break and I feel panicked and whatever. But it's so funny because it's all figure outable and it's such little things. But for whatever reason, I have these transactions going on all at the same time and all of them have like the same thing going wrong at the same time. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, is it because of me? And I like have blamed everything on me. And it's totally not my fault. Like it's repairs that need to get done on a house that needs to have their repairs done.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with you, in fact.
Right. It's not my fault that, there's a repair that needs to be fixed. I just need to work through it and like not stress out about it. But yeah, real estate is fun. I love real estate. I almost quit last week though.
You love doing this, though, ultimately, right? There are days where you're like, I love my job.
And literally, like, I had my little breakdown, and I voxed you about it and was like, should we record me crying? And you were like, probably not. But, yeah, it's little things, but it felt like they were all piling up at once. And I just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm dropping everything and like I'm throwing the paper up in the air and giving up. And then the next day I woke up and was like, okay, now it's time to tackle them. But I'm taking some time off next week. So I'm pumped about that. And we're going on a vacation.
Where are you going?
Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, I love it there. Have you been there before?
No. And so we're excited to drink some beers and go to a few breweries and maybe go on a hike or something like that. But we basically booked a vacation because I was losing my mind.
That's so nice that you're able to do that.
Thank God for my agent that watches my business while I'm away. Love you, Sally.
Shout out to Sally.
She's going to hate me at the end of it, but I got to do it.
Sally's amazing. We're going to have her on the podcast very soon. So I'm not having real estate anxiety right now, but once upon a time I did have it really bad. And I actually have a history of anxiety. I had some really bad anxiety a few years ago, actually several years ago. I felt like I had really dealt with it and worked it out and gone to therapy. Yes, I've gone to therapy. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And then when I became pregnant, all of my anxiety came flooding back. It was really crazy to suddenly feel like I had no control over my emotions. And I was having those feelings like you're explaining where it just felt like everything was happening all at once. And it felt like the walls were just closing in on me and I was running out of time. And I would start to have this mental spiral that ultimately landed in me being homeless, with no job, no money, no friends, no husband, all because this one thing had gone wrong.
Right.
Which is crazy when you actually say out loud. And so I started going to therapy again at that point. This was a couple years ago. And one thing that my therapist told me that I use for everything, I reflect on this lesson probably at least once a month, just asking yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Take yourself as far as it will go on what's the worst that could happen with this thing that you're having a crisis over in that moment.
Yeah, well, and like all of the things that I was anxious about are things that, okay, if something goes wrong or if this transaction goes down in flames, okay, it won't close. Okay, then I won't get a paycheck. Okay.
That's it. That's pretty much where it ends, right?
Right. Not a big deal at all. But then it's also like sometimes I think people, and me included, I like attach my worth on how well my transactions go, which is crazy. Because sometimes there are things that are completely out of your control. There are things that you can't help, no matter how amazing and great you are at your job.
That is totally crazy because there's, like you said, there's so many variables.
Right.
When you're putting together a real estate transaction, realistically, the stars have to align for it to be like a smooth process.
Yeah. It's so funny because I'm like, here I am talking about it. And I'm like, it's so dumb that I was feeling like that. But like, I know that there are people out there that do the same thing or feel the same way when they're going through a transaction that is hard to work through. First of all, just know you're not alone. Like, I am one of those people that I get an email and I'm like, that is so annoying that, you know, I have to do this and I'm inconvenienced by this. But then, I mean, my clients didn't know that I was going through, like, I was having feelings like this because you have to work through it.
You don't want them to see that part.
Right. And you have to keep them calm and not mad too about a certain thing that we can't help. It's interesting. It's a weird, like, I feel silly almost talking about it because I'm like, all of these things are not a big deal.
It's not silly at all. I think that because there's so many variables, that it's so common for this to happen because there are at all times so many different things that could be going wrong.
Right. And then you have so many different people involved and everybody has their feelings that you don't want to hurt. And you don't want the sellers to be mad and you don't want the buyers to be mad and you don't want the other agent to be mad, but everybody has to come to an agreement.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to pack away the feelings of, well, you did this wrong, so we're going to do this wrong back to you. Like sometimes you just want to like stick it to the other side, but like at the end of the day, that's not what everyone's goal is.
No, that doesn't matter.
You still have to walk in the direction of, let's get the problem solved. Let's all get along. Let's not be stressed out and let's work through it.
It's weird because it's such a personal thing that you're helping someone do. But ultimately, what does a seller want? They want the most money for their house. And what does a buyer want? They want their house not to be getting ripped off. One thing that I try to always remember to do is if I get, that scary email where something's gone wrong, before I reach out to my client, I do whatever legwork is necessary to make sure that I have even the smallest bit of good news to kind of add to that.
Yeah, I love that.
Even if it's, okay, so I just found out that this, repair needs to be done and it sounds really daunting. Before I ever call my seller, I will call up, a bunch of trade companies or whatever and find out exactly how much it's going to cost, what it entails, all of those things, so that when I call my seller, I have all of those answers prepared. And it's like I'm presenting this package of information. It makes me feel more like
in control.
It makes me feel more in control. It makes me feel more at peace. And it does the same thing for them at the same time. And it also feels really good to like feel that prepared. And so that's something I always try to do. There's going to be situations where that's not so realistic, If I have to tell my seller that the buyer's backed out for no reason at all whatsoever, like that's just shitty news. And there's really no good news that comes with that, except for my opinion is that I think it'll go quickly again,
Right. And that we like tackle it. We hit the ground running with marketing again. And all of my things that were going on, like so many good things happened during that week too. I got a short sale approval for one of my buyers that we didn't expect that quickly, but we needed quickly because they either needed to decide to rent for another year or to go month to month. and their current situation was breathing down on our necks, and somehow the approval came in. Like, that happened. But then it was overshadowed by like frustrating, stupid things that didn't have anything to do with that transaction. So
it's easier for me to get down on myself than to like celebrate myself.
oh, 100%.
That great thing could happen, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. But if one small thing bad happens, it's just, it just doesn't even matter that anything else happened.
Right.
I think it's really good to have someone to vent to who on some level could understand. Doesn't have to be a real estate professional. Hopefully you have someone like that in your corner. But I think it's good to vent, because I think just the process of saying out loud what you're stressed about is therapeutic, in the sense that, one, you get to hear it, and it usually puts it in perspective that it's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
So do that, and then think about what's the worst that could happen, and you're probably going to end at the fact that the worst thing that happens is this deal falls through and someone else comes and buys this house, or this deal falls through and my buyer picks another house.
I just feel like for me in this moment, I know, yes, I need to take a day off and take a deep breath and get my mind back where it needs to be. Even just talking through it and just realizing like, hey, that isn't actually that big of a deal in real life. Like, in your brain, you made that up to be something that isn't a big deal, or that is a big deal. So you're right. Like, saying it out loud, you're like, oh gosh, that's so silly that I'm like stressed out about that. And like, everything is figure outable.
There is a solution to every problem.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should be like, oh, wow, that was so silly, because it's not silly. It's legitimate emotions that you're experiencing. And so you don't want to like brush them off and kind of make yourself feel worse, because you probably already don't feel great. You don't want to make yourself think like, wow, I overreacted over nothing. Like, I'm so silly. I'm so stupid. It's like when you go into a messy room and you get overwhelmed and you're like, okay, I just need to start organizing. And then you organize and you're like, okay, this is great. But like, you don't think like, oh, wow, I was such a mess. Like, I was so disgusting. You just think like, okay, cool. The room is clean now.
Right.
We just need to be nicer to ourselves during these times. The harder we are on ourselves, it only will make it worse for ourselves. Like, why would you want to cause yourself more pain?
Right.
So, what are your favorite things to do to just de-stress?
Meditate. I love meditating. There's a podcast called Mindful Meditations, and then I use an app called Insight Timer.
Oh, okay.
So I use those. And those help calm me down, get me through the initial, like, oh gosh, I'm freaking out.
I have an app called Headspace because I want to be better at meditating.
Yeah, I love Headspace.
I'm so bad at it. I'm so bad at forcing myself to go and like sit down and do it.
Yeah. Well, and then I started reading this week, The Miracle Morning, I think it's called.
Oh, yeah.
And it talks about kind of like finding time for your meditation so that you can like always have it scheduled in, so that you don't have to do it when you're feeling psycho, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can do it every single day at a specific time. And the whole idea of this book is that you wake up earlier, like an hour earlier than you do now. And then in a few days, you wake up an hour earlier before that. You make space for the things like drinking a big cup of water before you even start your day. Like, do you do that, Alex?
No.
Me either.
My dad does that. My dad, my whole life, always kept this giant cup next to like the bathroom sink, and every single morning would fill it up and drink the entire thing before doing anything else, and then like sit down and read before starting his day. He like definitely had his shit together. I don't know where I got mine from.
Well, and that's part of the miracle morning. Like, you wake up earlier, you drink a big old glass of water, you brush your teeth, and then you either get dressed to work out or you go take a shower, and then you like actually start your day. A bunch of people have started doing it, and like, it's made such a big difference in their life and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to try to start doing that. I'm probably going to start it next week. But I've started doing the water thing, and it makes it so that I crave water more for the rest of the day. I'm one of those people that like will get distracted very quickly.
Yeah.
But like, even just that makes a big difference in like how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And then the way that you feel goes to the rest of your day, right? I'm excited to start that. That will be fun, but I didn't want to add another project while I'm feeling stressed out.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where like anxiety is temporary. For me, real estate anxiety is temporary. Once you figure out the problem, you can fix it.
Well, I think it all is temporary in a sense because it all comes in waves, right?
Yes.
So you just have to figure out how to navigate those waves.
Yeah. Once you can feel yourself getting to the point where you're feeling a little bit panicked about something, or maybe that's not the right word, but having consistent things in place that are like the meditation, having something to focus on other than your anxiety at least helps a little bit. That's kind of why I'm like, oh, I'm going to start focusing on that, because that's like a healthy change versus like an unhealthy change.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. I guess I'll report back on miracle mornings.
That's great. I definitely want to be more like you and learn how to meditate. I don't know if I could ever do the wake up hours early thing. I feel like that's definitely a personality type thing.
I'm a sleeper inner person. Like,
Oh,
I
so
like
am
to
I.
sleep in.
Yeah.
So for me, like, I need to go to bed earlier, I think, regardless of if I do Miracle Morning or not. Like, I need to go to bed earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But the Miracle Morning will be interesting to see if I do that, because some of these people wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and then like have their full day, but they get their important things done first thing.
Yeah.
Because I think part of what real estate anxiety comes from is like when I'm doing something and then something else derails my day. And then I'm like, oh, but I need to focus on that thing. And so I'm panicked about the fact that I need to focus on this thing that I was doing in the first place.
So you feel like you don't have enough time?
Yeah, to do everything that I want to do or need to do. And then something derails me and then I get frustrated that it derails me.
Yeah.
Or derails my day, right? So I feel like this miracle morning thing might be cool because it will like start me off on like a good path. And then, you know, if I'm up before the problems can start, like before you start getting emails of problems that you need to take care of,
Yeah.
or phone calls, then I could have already gotten the things that I like quote unquote wanted to get done, you know?
I started doing this. I think I got this tip from Buffini. I'm not sure, but I feel like it was around that time, to not look at my phone the moment I wake up, to like give myself some time. And so even if it's like 10 minutes or whatever, the first thing that you need to be looking at is not, oh my gosh, like I have all of these things to do, and getting overwhelmed like before you've even gotten out of bed. Get out of bed, brush your teeth, go to the bathroom, like do whatever you need to do in the morning. That way you can have a nice, happy 5, 10, even an hour, like whatever works for you before looking at your phone. I feel like that made a huge difference. And my other thing that really helps me when I'm feeling super stressed out is a nice hot bath. They say that a really hot bath for like 30 minutes can de-stress you more than exercising.
Yeah, I'll take that any day.
Yes, me too.
I need to do that because we have a bath, and I like bath bombs, so I have a lot of bath bombs, so I need to use them.
Use them.
Yes, girl.
All right, well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us as we talk about the side effects of being in the real estate business. As always, you can find us at Call Before Showing on Instagram and Facebook. Please subscribe to this podcast. And if you have any requests, topics, or people we might want to interview for a future podcast, please let us know. Any questions, anything you'd like to contribute, you can definitely send us an email at callbeforeshowing@gmail.com. We would love, love, love to hear from you guys. And we just appreciate you listening.
Yay. Thanks for being here, guys. And we hope that you don't have the same real estate anxiety.
And if you have tips for de-stressing, we're always looking to learn more and just be better, more relaxed versions of ourselves, because we don't want wrinkles.
True.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Catch you next time.
Bye.